Pennsylvania Republicans are taking back power to seat electors as Sidney Powell finally releases the KRAKEN. In this video, we're going to take a look at the bombshell revelation that Pennsylvania Republicans are indeed preparing to send pro-Trump electors to Washington, D.C. on December 14th, how the media got completely blindsided by this bold move, and I'm going to give you a nice summary of the KRAKEN lawsuit unleashed by Sidney Powell in Georgia. You are not going to want to miss this. Welcome everyone, Dr. Steve here with you, ready to bring you our latest episode celebrating the inevitable collapse of left-wing globalism and the unstoppable rise of a new conservative age. So if you haven't already done so, you know what to do. But as you can see, if you're not watching Steve Bannon's The War Room on a daily basis, you really are missing out. The guests that he has on there every morning and even has a early evening broadcast, they're all on the front lines of this battle to close down the Biden comedy show once and for all and close the deal on Trump's landslide win on November 30. Today had as his guest the Pennsylvania Representative Doug Mastriano. Now, we've been talking a lot about Representative Mastriano. He's the real deal, as we like to put it. He's a true nationalist populist. He's a true deplorable. He's the one who organized and oversaw the Majority Policy Committee hearings of the Pennsylvania legislature in Gettysburg on Wednesday to hear eyewitness testimony of voter fraud throughout the state, but particularly in Philadelphia and Montgomery County. He's a retired U.S. Army colonel, and what we're finding out as of today is that this was an absolutely genius move on his part to close the deal on President Trump's reelection. He was just on Bannon's War Room, and he made a bombshell announcement just today. He is currently leading the effort to get the Republican-controlled legislature to reclaim its power to appoint the state's electors to the Electoral College. Now, he's working on drafting a resolution to, in his words, grab back their constitutional authority from the Secretary of State that, for whatever reason, the state of Pennsylvania legislators ceded back in 1938. I'm not clear on why they did that. The U.S. Constitution is very clear on this issue. It grants state legislatures the right to appoint electors to vote on the president on December 14th. But for whatever reason, the Pennsylvania legislature abdicated that responsibility to the Secretary of State 80 years ago. And the current Secretary of State's a rabid leftist. Her name is Kathy Boockvar. She's a Democrat, of course. She recently went ahead and certified the Pennsylvania vote for Biden, together with their ultra-leftist governor, Tom Wolf. What a wonderfully appropriate name. And this, of course, after an Obama-appointed judge threw out the Trump legal team's effort to stop their certification. But and you know, Judge Patricia McCullough, she has since ordered the state to not take any further steps to complete the certification of the votes. She's blocked the certification of any and all further votes pending further hearings. Really good stuff. But regardless, the Secretary of State, this Kathy Boockvar, it looks like she's about to get the power to appoint electors taken away from her. According to Representative Mastriano, the Republicans have assembled a majority of support for this resolution that would in effect strip the Secretary of State of the power to appoint electors and put that power back in the hands of the Pennsylvania Republican legislature, which is indeed signaling that they are ready to appoint Republican electors who will vote for Trump on December 14th when the electors get together. And the reason for this is precisely because of the shocking evidence of voter fraud that was presented in Gettysburg on Wednesday. Now, this is absolutely hilarious. You want to talk about sort of an ironic justice here, because as we talked about in our last video, the mainstream media completely ignored the hearing at Gettysburg. Even Fox News, faux news, not a word. To his credit, Lou Dobbs on Fox Business did cover it. He actually had to slap down this insufferable little B-list Fox News reporter for belittling the hearings. The media as a whole either blacked out the hearings or they mocked them, right? Like this B-list Fox News, faux news reporter. Again, I got to tell you, as the ratings for Fox News continue to implode, I mean, it's really beyond belief. I got to say, the self-destruction of Fox News, it almost makes me want to really believe that Epstein did kill himself. I promise you, I'm not quite there yet, but Fox's self-destruction is at least making me reconsider it. All right, but seriously, the utterly astonishing doubling down of insulting their audience base is just a parody of itself at this point. But getting back to the point here, it's becoming increasingly obvious just how flat-footed, just how off guard the media got caught here. They're either, blacking out the Gettysburg thing, or they're belittling it as a kangaroo court, and yet the collective testimony offered there is fast becoming the primary impetus for the Republican legislature to take back power to seat electors away from the Secretary of State and all but guarantee Republican electors who will vote to re-elect President Trump on December 14th. So this is a major movement in this fight to close the deal, right, as it were, on President Trump's re-election. In our last video, we talked about the perfect storm that's brewing here. Take a look at this. This is from Kevin McCullough. I really love it. He says, as of this morning, in Pennsylvania, we've got a judge halting certification. And now, since then, of course, the bombshell news that the Republican legislature is going to take power back to appoint electors. In Wisconsin, a judge allowed a petition on 150,000 ballots. Now, we talked about this in our last video today. Today's the final day of the Milwaukee County recount, and Dane County, which includes the city of Madison, that should be done on Sunday. Now, if you don't know, what's going on in Wisconsin is astounding. Biden's only up by about 20,000 votes. Again, we talked about this in the last video, but just bears repeating. The Republican legislature in Wisconsin some time back made it virtually impossible to cheat by mail-in voting. And they did that by not allowing any mail-in ballots to be sent out without a written request from the voter. The voter has to submit a written request by Wisconsin law in order to receive a mail-in ballot. If a mail-in ballot is cast but there's no record of a written request, it is by law invalid. It's being reported as we speak that about 60,000 ballots in Milwaukee County and 40,000 ballots in Dane, where Madison is, are mail-in ballots or absentee ballots that have absolutely no request applications connected to them whatsoever. So this means we're ready to toss 100,000 ballots from Wisconsin and hand the state to Trump. All right, back to this. In Nevada, a judge has scheduled an evidentiary hearing on November 3rd to let the Trump campaign present its evidence that fraud and illegalities plagued the state's election. And it's being reported that the fraud and illegalities, again, this is Nevada, are indeed enough to reverse Joe Biden's win and set an example for other state challenges. In Michigan, Sidney Powell's KRAKEN lawsuit has military intel that can prove vote switches. And in Georgia, the same KRAKEN lawsuit is blowing the roof off the state. And Attorney Lynn Wood, he's getting an expedited review of his case. Gang, it's game on. It's absolutely game on. Now, if you don't know what's going on with Sidney Powell's KRAKEN case in Georgia, right, I'm going to give you a nice summary, overall summary of precisely what's happening there. But first, we got something for you podcast fans. Very quick overview of the KRAKEN lawsuit. And a huge shout out to We the Inevitable on Twitter for putting this together. In a nutshell, the KRAKEN lawsuit alleges first and foremost that Dominion and Smartmatic voting machines were indeed created to help Hugo Chavez steal elections in Venezuela. They have a Venezuelan whistleblower, I believe he's military, that have his direct testimony about being involved in the creation of those systems. It alleges that the voting computers were connected to the internet so that they could be manipulated and were manipulated from remote regions on November 3rd. It alleges that Georgia Governor Kemp and the Secretary of State Raffensperger hastily bought Dominion voting systems for Georgia, even when warned about their risks. Governor Kemp purposely relaxed Georgia's voting safeguards, that the Secretary of State intentionally did not verify signatures on mail-in ballots. Documentary evidence was destroyed that the law requires them to retain in connection with mail-in voting, and that almost 100,000 absentee ballots that were requested by voters were included in the vote total, even though there's no record that those ballots were ever returned to county election boards. This is where the whole chain of custody comes in. And given that Biden only won the state by less than 10,000 votes, the court should require the legislature to nullify its certification of the vote. And so obviously, it's a massive lawsuit, but Sidney Powell says she's got the goods, or as Steve Bannon likes to put it, she's got the receipts. She can prove it all. And so obviously, we're going to be keeping our eyes on how things develop here hour by hour. But like I said in our last video earlier today, the tide has indeed turned. The Trump team is on the offensive, and the Biden media complex is beginning to panic, and we ain't seen nothing yet.